yesterday I was on the phone with our friend Doug Howe, and he was telling us about a roadside crossing in Lewis County near Taidnapam Park, which I believe the closest town would be Glenoma. And apparently the witness had seen the Sasquatch cross the road from 20 feet away. And so today we're meeting up with the witness as well as Doug, and he's going to give us an interview and let us know what he saw.
So my neighbor, Todd Apple, who lives in the valley just below me, he gave me a call last night and said, hey, I got a friend, his name is Merritt. He drives truck and just east of Rife Lake off the 300 road. He's driving his truck and Sasquatch jumped out in front of his truck and right in front of his front grill, ran over 100 yards in front of him down the road before it took off north down to the river. And at least 9 feet tall and heavily matted blackish fur and this terrible stench.
So yesterday afternoon after work I was coming down the hill and a dark creature jumped off the hill right there and ran down the road to where we're all parked down there and then darted down the trail. And I was in a dump truck and it was about level with the windshield of the dump truck, and we were doing about 25-30 miles an hour down the hill. So that's basically it. And then I called my buddy and he reached out to his neighbor, and then that's who got you guys all out here.
Where did it come from?
Right up here somewhere. We're still trying to figure that out. It was by that tree right there.
Can you describe what it looked like?
It was about 8-9 feet tall, or 9.5 feet tall. It had big shoulders, went down, and then it got skinnier around the stomach and then wider around the hips, and then straight down. It was really shaggy, long, blackish brown hair. And the smell, I'll never forget that smell. It smelled like wet dog. It smelled like a dog just went swimming in like a couple-year-old pond. It just stunk so bad.
Did you see a face?
I did not. It had its back to me the whole time. They asked too, and I couldn't see its arms moving or anything. It was hunched over and had its head sticking straight up and was just running down the road. It started out over here, and then when we got down to the bottom, or closer to the bottom, it got in the middle of the road, and then at the very bottom by those trees, it hugged the branches and everything and then dipped down into that trail. And I didn't feel like stopping and investigating. It scared the crap out of me, and I got out of here as quickly as possible. And I called my buddy because I thought it was a bear. I've never been a Bigfoot. It's always been in the back of my head that it could be real, but I've never believed completely. Sure, it could be out there, but I never thought of it actually being a Bigfoot till he's like, no, you saw a Bigfoot, when I was describing it to him. And then you guys all got a hold of, or Doug got a hold of me this morning, and that's what got the ball rolling now. And then they've been investigating all day.
What color?
It was blackish brown.
How about the shape of the head?
It was human-like shaped, normal. It wasn't pointed. It was just a normal human head, it looked like, on big shoulders. You could see the defined shoulders. So couldn't see any like ears like bears or deer have or anything like that.
So Merritt was saying, yeah, just 30 seconds before Merritt came over the rise, a log truck went westbound past where the Sasquatch was hiding by the tree. And right after the truck went to the west, Merritt came over the rise, headed eastbound, and it jumped out in front of him.
So it was running along the bushes. It wasn't touching the bushes, but it was very, very close to him. And it came down and it knew exactly where it was going. And as soon as it got to this trail, it made a hard left turn and was gone. And by the time it was about to these bushes, I was about on the other side of the Jeep right here. And I just kept going. I didn't want to stop and investigate and see where it was going, what it was doing. And I just went home. I was doing about 55 after I got past it the rest of the way. And all the way back down the 25 hill.
In your dump truck.
In my dump truck.
And you're thinking, I just saw a Bigfoot.
I thought it was a bear at first. But I've never seen a bear that big in my life. I didn't know what I had seen. That's the only logical thing that I could think of, was it was a bear. I never logically thought that it was a Sasquatch until I talked to my friend, and he was like, no, I think you saw a Bigfoot. I've never seen a bear that big or run on its back legs.
If you're unaware of our property, we've had a family group of Sasquatch that we've been observing and collecting data on for almost 12 years. It'll be 12 years in September. I don't know how long that group's been here, probably for generations. I believe that they keep their territories. So I'm going to share some audio clips with you of them speaking. And I'm also, at the very end of the video, I'll share a tutorial on how to record Sasquatch, because I know that's not many of you out there, but there are some people that have asked. So that'll be at the very end so that you can click out if you're not interested. In this video, we are going to share some sightings that have happened recently, and also our friend Ariel is going to recall her sighting from when she was a child.
So the house that I grew up in was right across the street from a graveyard, and when I lived there we didn't really have a whole lot. We didn't have TV or anything like that, and at the end of the day I would quite frequently look out the window and look across to see if I could see any deer in the graveyard. The old lady who lived next to me, she had some prize roses in her front yard, and she was always telling me, oh, these deer are always eating my roses, I can't stand it. And so I had moved up from California, and I really wanted to see any animals that I could see, and so I would always look out the window hoping to see deer and anything else. And so one night I was laying on the couch, I was peeking out under the curtain on the window, and I was looking out into the graveyard, and there was a deer, and it was just doing typical deer stuff. It was eating the grass, maybe nibbling on the roses that are around people's gravestones, and all of a sudden it did this, like the standard deer kind of startled response where it gets super paralyzed, it's looking over its shoulder, it's trying to figure out what's going on, and all of a sudden it just takes off running. And it was right in front of me, about maybe 100, 125 feet away, and it took off, and right behind it is what I thought was a bear, and it was chasing it. It was super fast. The deer ran kind of away from my house at an angle. It went behind this building that was a mortuary building at the edge of the graveyard, and I lost sight of both of them. And I thought that was it. I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I thought it was National Geographic in my front yard. And then the deer and the bear came around the other side of the mortuary building, and they were coming straight at me. I was watching it the whole time. The bear looked like it was about to get the deer. It was super close. I was convinced that this bear was about to grab this deer in my front yard. And so the deer, it barely makes it away. It pops out into the street over into kind of a power substation area. And you can see its sides are just heaving, it's out of breath, but it's just sort of standing under the street light. And so I watched that for a while, because the bear, I couldn't see the bear anymore. It was, dark, and I couldn't see anything, so I was just watching the deer for a while until the lights in front of the mortuary building kind of flickered out, and I realized, oh, it just walked in front of those lights. And so I looked, and I was watching it. It was crouched low to the ground. It was moving really, really slowly, kind of parallel to me across the graveyard. It just walked really slowly. I watched it kind of the whole time in the shadows until it finally got to the highway. There was a highway, and then it goes straight up a hillside. And right when it got to, there's like a fence and a little barricade at the edge of the highway, it stood up on two legs, and it did kind of the classic, PG film, patty, frame, whatever, walking across the road 2 or 3 steps, and it was gone up the hillside. And so I didn't know what I had seen at that point. I hadn't really ever heard about Bigfoot. I didn't know where to categorize that. And for the longest time, the closest thing that I had a frame of reference to was like a werewolf. So I just assumed for the longest time, well, what I saw, maybe it was a werewolf. Maybe grown-ups don't know what the heck they're talking about, because, I was 11, 12 when this happened, and I just didn't know what to make of it. That same house, I was watching TV later. We got a TV, but we didn't actually have cable or anything. My uncle would actually mail us VHS tapes of Star Trek Voyager, and so we would watch that on the TV. And I was sitting, not on the couch that night by the window, but I was sitting in the recliner, which was about 10 feet away from the window, and it hit a commercial break, and I can remember distinctly that a 99-cent Whopper commercial came on, and I remember thinking, that's stupid. There's no Burger Kings in this town. It was just a tiny little town. And I was kind of sitting in my chair, and I looked over to my right, and that's when I saw, staring back at me, these two yellow eyes reflecting the light from inside the house, just looking right at me. And I, understandably, freaked out. I took my blankets, I threw my blankets over my head, and I was like, no, 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 no. I don't know what that is, but I don't want to see it. And when I threw my blankets over my head, I could hear something walking away or running away from my house. I don't know. I couldn't tell you if it was bipedal or quadrupedal. All I know is it made a lot of noise leaving from that window. Looking back on it, I definitely think that what was looking in my window was a Bigfoot, because it doesn't make sense for it to have been anything else. And part of the reason that I think that is that graveyard that was across the street from my house, where I initially saw one, I would be looking out at that graveyard every single night. And so at some point, if a Bigfoot is coming into town and it's regularly hunting in that graveyard, I feel like at some point it must have noticed that I was looking out the window, and it got curious, like, who is this and why are they always looking out here? And also, I used to ride my bike in that graveyard. There was a cement path that I would ride up and down until the sun went down. And so if you're a Bigfoot waiting to come into town at night to hunt deer, well, you probably got to wait for this weird kid riding their bike in the graveyard to go back to their house, and you might get curious about that kind of thing.
On our last video that we did, there was a few comments about how the images that we use look very ape-like, and people were saying that a lot of the encounters they read, the Sasquatch, when the face is seen, has more of a human appearance. And this is the case. However, AI imaging is not so good at doing Sasquatch right now. The best we can get is a very ape-like feature. The jaw is not ape-like on a Sasquatch. It's more human. And then the nose is not like an ape nose. It's more human. I reached out to a woman named Sybilla Irwin. What she does is she does artist sketches, kind of like how the police artists come in and interview victims and they describe what the person looked like and the person sketches it until the person is satisfied. That's what she does with Sasquatch. So because photos of them are lacking, with permission, I'm going to share some of the sketches that she's done, and these are from all over the country. I've also animated a few of them. If you would like to see her work, her website is linked down in the description, and she also has a YouTube channel where she interviews the people that she did sketches for. So I highly recommend you check that out. That is also linked in the description.
About a mile further up the creek back there, we were out hunting for elk. It was probably October or November, and we were out there evening time, and I thought I was just hearing stuff, but then about a minute later, the guy that went further upstream came running out of the bushes asking if I had heard it. And so at that point, it was kind of like, yeah, I did hear that. We both kind of tried figuring out what it was, and we knew it wasn't a cat or a bear, so we just decided, yeah, let's go get the other third guy with us, and we decided it was time to get out the woods. And so yeah, we went back up to the truck and went ahead and headed down the hill, and we didn't see anything really else after that. My old neighbor, he goes up hunting a lot, riding his motorcycle up in the woods a lot. He's told me many stories, just different times, saying he's heard tree knocks or he's heard kind of like a whoop. Even another old friend of mine, he used to go with us a lot too. He's been up there a few times when my old neighbors heard it. I don't think he's ever said he's seen something, but he's said he's heard it quite a few times.
Sounds like it's something that's not that uncommon for the area then.
No, I almost wonder if just a lot of people don't want to share it because they just don't want to be kind of ridiculed or criticized.
A friend and I were traveling through the hills through Packwood area, and what we were doing was we were going hunting, and we were leaving from my house at about 3:30 in the morning or so, and then we'd get to Packwood about 5 or so. And when we were driving through Packwood, we were going up towards Cayuse Pass and on Highway 12. And a friend of mine had told me before that they had spotted Bigfoot in that area. So I've always been kind of aware of Bigfoot's being in that area. And so every time I go through there, I'm looking, to see if I can see a Bigfoot. And that morning it was raining really hard, about 5 or so, I say, and it was raining hard, and I was driving along looking, and I could see, I saw like a bush off to the side of the road next to the guardrail, and it was actually on the outside of the guardrail, but I was probably a quarter mile or half mile before I got to the Cayuse Pass, and it was standing on the outside of the guardrail, and at first all I could see was like a hairy bush or something, and then it started, I could form like the head, and then it got closer into my headlights because it was dark out and raining, and then it got right into my headlight beams, and I could see basically the head and the body and arm and stuff, and he was standing like quartered away from me like this, and you could see him standing like this, and his arm and stuff was like, one of the first things I noticed was it was probably 5 feet long at least, and bigger around in my leg. It was like huge biceps and stuff, and then I kind of glanced around. I could see his shoulders also, and he was like over 5 feet wide or so, and probably 9 feet tall. I remember thinking that, gosh, if I was standing on that guardrail, I wouldn't be as tall as him. And anyway, then I could see like how he looked like kind of a tan color, and you could see like his muscles through the fur, which is probably, I'm guessing, 4 or 5 inches long, hair I should say, rather than fur. But it was extremely muscular, kind of reminded me of looking like the Incredible Hulk with hair on him, but his head actually sat right on his shoulders. I couldn't see much of a neck, and it went up to a point. I remember looking for like an ear or something, but I never really could see an ear on his head. It was like hidden in the fur, but he wasn't facing me. Like, see, he was kind of looking like this away from me, and he didn't really move much, but he was definitely like 3-dimensional. I drove past him looking at him until he got out of my headlights, and then he couldn't see him any longer. But I was just impressed at the size and mass of him. He was just huge. I actually thought about going back, but then I thought the thing was just huge, and it could just flip my Jeep over if I got too close to him if he wanted to, and I didn't really want to turn and go back at the time. So we went on hunting, and then I came back that evening. I drove by it, turned around, drove back the same way, and everything was nothing there. So it was definitely an animal, or a Bigfoot, standing next to the road. Another thing that was really interesting about that area is I had been told by a friend of mine that had passed away now, that him and his friend and his friend's dad had seen one sitting on the guardrail right there at the same place, and they actually slowed down, I guess, and got a good look at it. And they said that actually, I remember him saying that there's other cars that slowed down and looked at it too, and it was just sitting on the edge of the road in the guardrail. I don't know if that was in the day or in the evening or night or whatever, but since he told me that was the area that they were seen in, I kind of like really paid attention when I went through that area all the time. And I actually had another little bit of an experience up there a couple days before. We were driving over to hunt over there also, because we weren't able to camp or anything over there that year or last year. And farther up the road, like day before, 2 days before, I think it was 2 days before, I saw some tracks on the road, and I thought they were like paintings of Bigfoot tracks or footprints, on the road. And then we came back through there that night, and they were gone. And because I marked where they were at, and I came back through, they're gone, and it was there must have been mud on the road. One may have crossed that morning, just before we went through there. So, but it wasn't that far away from where we saw the one either. So I don't know if they were traveling through there or what, but definitely interesting.
I recorded for 2.5 years, beginning in 2012. I'm recording again now. I've been recording. I have a few months of audio to review. But when I was recording, that's when you put together the whole picture of everything. And I found that I was recording usually 3 individuals. That was, other than a group that would come through every once in a while that sounded like some rogue males, where we got a Turf Wars audio clip. Our Turf Wars audio clip is in a video. I'll also link that in the description. But other than that, there would be one that I would call the big guy. And I believe that's the one that we keep seeing. And then I would record a female. And then I would record one that sounded like possibly what I would call a teenager, possibly, or a little bit younger. So the male sounds, his voice is so deep that I can't do it when I try to do his voice. It's very difficult to pick up. She sounds like she's a deaf person. And then the young one that I call the yip yeller, because the first recordings of him was him saying yip. This is not the only place where yip has been recorded. It really is mind-blowing to hear what a Sasquatch possibly sounds like. When they're talking, when they're howling, when they're mimicking animal sounds, whatever it is. I'm going to play the first audio clip. So you're going to want to, if you have headphones, you are going to want to put these on, especially to hear this first audio clip, because this audio clip is of the male, the big guy, and his voice is so deep that it's very hard to hear his voice. This next one is a female and the male. The female sounds deaf. And in this clip, I'm just speculating based on their tone. It almost sounds like an argument's going on, though that might not be the case. But you're going to hear her talk, and then the big guy is going to respond. Here's that. The third individual that we would record, we would call the yip yeller. Yip is not an uncommon thing. This has been recorded in other places. So has hay. And I don't think that Sasquatch understands language, but I do think that they are, because they're masters of mimicry, I think that they repeat words that they often hear people say, or sounds that they hear people say. The yip yeller, I believe, is a younger one, possibly a teenager or a little bit younger. Here's another audio clip of him yelling nonsense and then yip. For those of you that are interested in recording and you want to know what my setup is, I use a Tascam. You can get less expensive Olympus recorders on Amazon, but I really like the Tascam. What I do for this, if you can hook this up to electricity, you can just run it until your SD card fills up. Or you can also put it on a timer when you start recording. What I do though is I hook it up to this right here, this system. Now what this is it's just your regular battery that you use for your household screw gun. And then this shoe fits over top of it. And you can find shoes to any battery that you have. And what this does, this USB connects to the shoe, slides on, and then this USB-C connects to the side of this. Now, if you're using one of these systems, one thing that you want to be careful is if you turn this off, you also want to flip this off in the back because it will drain the battery even if you're not recording. So turn that on, power up the Tascam just by holding this down. And then it's going to give you options right here. And you want bus power. Bus power is using the battery. So we're going to click on that. And then you're ready to record. What you want to do, if you're getting a Tascam, you need to know something that I didn't know. You have to hit record twice. If you hit record, it just shows you right here everything, but you need to hit it twice to actually get it recording. And again, you could set it on a timer. You can do whatever you want to do to just record a certain amount of time. But this setup right here will last you about 2 days without turning it off. You might want to watch some YouTube videos on the settings for this. If you hit menu, it's going to give you some options. The only one that I mess with is under record settings. So hit enter or play. And then I go to the format right here. You don't want that to be WAV unless you do, but it takes up tons of memory. So what I do is scroll over and then I adjust that until it's at MP3 320K. That's the highest resolution for the MP3 that I use. You don't have to go that high. You can use others, but I want the best audio that I can get without completely wiping out the memory cards with the WAV format. Once you've recorded and you've got your filled SD card, you think that we're listening to an entire night, 8 hours with headphones on, going through our audio files. You don't have to do that. You can use free software such as Audacity. There's another one called Sound Visualizer, but I prefer Audacity. And all you have to do is go over to the left side of the screen right here and type spectrograph. And that way you can see everything. It's all laid out there. And once you get to know the surroundings you're in, I highly recommend you find out what kind of animals are in the area that you're recording, because when you start doing this, you think everything's a Sasquatch. We thought everything was. And then you have to learn that owls make crazy sounds. Cows can make crazy sounds. So learn your surroundings first. Once you get an understanding of that, you'll be able to just see visually certain things. You can see coyotes, you know what that looks like on the spectrograph. Different things. You know what a knock looks like. You know what people talking looks like. And that way you can identify these a lot easier, and you can go through an entire 8-hour night in 15 to 20 minutes. And then see what you can get, see what you can come up with. And I hope that this video encourages people to upload it to whatever media platform you have so that more people are aware of these creatures. They're absolutely fascinating, and I feel like the general public is completely deprived of not knowing about these amazing creatures.